Alright, today we are going over my teams and battles from my UU adventures in the recent DPP Premier League. Sadly, the regular season of that tournament was only 5 weeks. Even more sadly, my team did not make it to the playoffs, so the sad conclusion is that I only got to play 5 games. However, there is a very bright side to that coin. Even in spite of not getting to play that many games, this tournament was still a great, painstaking reminder of why I love this tier as much as I do, and why I have loved this tier for the past 11 plus years. So I wasn't planning on try-harding each week, building 10 perfect teams based on my opponent's scouting reports. I built a lot more than these 5 teams, but it was just because I started thinking about the tier, and I had so many of these cool ideas, and I just wanted to put them all together. So there was way more built than I could use in 3 of these tournaments. So, we're just gonna stick with these 5 that actually saw the games. But yeah, I really just love this tier. I hope this video brings to you a fraction of the joy that this tier has brought and continues to bring to me. So, this is not a definitive statement on the UU metagame. This is not a deep dive of every possible option the tier has to offer. These are just my recent experiments and experiences. So we're going to start with the team I used in my first game, which is based on the classic combination of Mismagius and Alakazam. So Spec Zam is awesome. Life Orb, the recoil, getting switched around, the lower power, just don't like it. I love Spec Zam because strong, just spamming those psychics, and it's real. Oh, you also have the option to trick against bulky teams that are annoying, which is really valuable as opposed to being useless. But the main draw is that it's really easy to just rip through things that you otherwise might not, like Milotic, just with the sheer power of Spec Psychic, as opposed to getting recovered Life Orb stalled. And with spikes, then things like even resists like Registeel aren't going to want to come in. Of course, there are downsides to spamming Spec Psychic. This tier does have immunes in Dark types, and those Dark types have Pursuit, and that's where Missy comes in. Missy baits in these Dark types, and at the very worst, will Destiny Bond and bring down that Spiritomb or that Houndoom or whatever it is. Of course, Missy is a great Pokemon in its own right, so ideally, it doesn't just go down 1-for-1. Having that as a worst-case scenario is amazing, don't get me wrong, that's part of why it's here. And also the fact that it spin blocks the spikes that are crucial to wearing the opposing team down for a Zam Sweep. But it also can wear down those Dark types without having to engage with them on its own. A double switch, bring them in, take some hazard damage, and they're forced out again, and then they're hard-pressed to switch into Missy anymore. So then there's also, of course, Roar Arcanine, but we'll get to Roar Arcanine in a second. So that's the combination of Missy and Zam. It's a classic one. And then we have our hazard duo of Clef. This one has T-Wave to slow down things like Scyther. That's the big one. And I have knockoff on Leafeon, so I don't really miss that, but we'll get to that later as well. Clef is great because I'm disconnected from Pokemon Showdown. Clef is great because it switches in on all those passive Pokemon that might temporarily stop Zam. Slowking's a big one because it resists Psychic, unlike Milotic, and it still has that recovery. I mean, obviously you can Spec Shadow Ball it, but you want to be spamming Psychic most of the time. So Clef switches in on them, no problem, doesn't fear status. It means I'm not on a timer. I don't have to rush the Zam Sweep, and it's a very reliable rocker. Then Quillfish is a great bulky mid-game spiker. This set is something I came up with because bulky Quillfish is a great Pokemon with its classic set of like Spikes, Taunt, Pain Split, and then Waterfall. But a lot of people kind of expect that, and they expect it to be passive, when Quillfish has the capacity to be such a threatening Pokemon. So what I really like to do is Aqua Jet and Explosion. Aqua Jet is, well, it's great priority in general for annoying things like Moltres, but it also is amazing because it turns Dugtrio from having a would-be free trap to potentially getting KO'd with spikes. But at the very least, it will ensure that Dugtrio cannot also check Arcanine, and that's really big. And it also works vice versa with Arcanine. So that's Quillfish for you. I love the Quillfish Arcanine combo. I have to stop myself from putting it on every team. But yeah, bulky Quillfish, even with these offensive moves, is still a great Pokemon. It's still going to switch into Clef and whatnot, and you don't really miss. I mean, you can do things like Taunt and Pain Split and Waterfall and T-Wave if you like, but this is where Leafeon's Wish support comes in. But again, Leafeon later. So Arcanine here is Roar because it answers Sub Moltres and Sub Entei, two of the most irritating Pokemon possible. You know, Sub Calmine Entei is a pain. Sub Toxic Moltres is a pain even for teams with Clef because of Flamethrower having a million PP and pressure and just ugly. So Roar really puts the pressure on with hazards, and of course it wears down things like Milotic switching in and Slowking, of course, and makes it easier for Zam to clean up. Generally, you really force it. Problem is sometimes with hazard-focused stuff, and this applies to any tier, is that sometimes you just don't make the opponent switch enough so the hazards don't take their toll, and sometimes you can just barely miss out on KOs with your cleanup poke, and that's how a lot of teams stay alive even in the face of multiple hazards. And Roar is such a great offensive tool for those reasons. I mean, I have a video dedicated to why phasing moves are amazing, but that's what Amaza phasing, or whatever you would call that, because that just needed to be said. But yeah, the idea is that Arcanine will wear down the opposing team for Zam to clean up more easily. And crucially, to go back to the point about having to remove the dark types that are threatening Zam, then Arcanine can roar them in, force the damage on them, and then they're hard pressed to switch into Missy. And yeah, that's Arcanine in a nutshell. It has physical defense here to answer Scyther, but it also has special defense to handle things like Moltres Air Slash to back up Clef. Another reason for Quillfish's Aqua Jet, by the way. Moltres is a threat to pretty much every team, even those with Chansey. And finally, Leafeon. Now, this slot also could be Tangrowth. I had a variant with that. And the basic idea between it being Leafeon or Tangrowth is that they provide some really important defensive utility against some big physical attackers. The biggest one being Torterra, because standard Rock Polish Torterra, doesn't even need a Rock Polish. Just Wood Hammer, EQ, Stone Edge rips through so many standard UU teams, and it doesn't have many true checks. And unlike something like Weezing, which is also a great answer, and also answers things like Venusaur, Leafeon and Tangrowth have the distinct advantage of being great counters to Rhyperior, which is really great. Most sets you'll handle no problem, and even a Life Orb Mega Horn is not going to be too troubling. Well, I'll get back to the Rhyperior point in a sec. And they also handle the physical water trio of Feraligatr, Kabutops, and Azumarill. So those are some great qualities. So generally you want Tangrowth when you really need the help against something like DD Altaria or SD Leafeon. SD Leafeon is also a massive threat. But I felt they were rather well covered on this team with the Impish Roar Arcanine and just all the pressure coming from every angle, so I didn't really need them. So there are a couple of reasons why I chose Leafeon's physically defensive set. One, it is a better answer to Mega Horn Rhyperior because it's naturally so much faster than Tangrowth. So even if you switch into a Life Orb Mega Horn, then you are still going to outspeed Rhyperior on the turn after, so you can still check it. Whereas Tangrowth is going to get outsped and 2 KO'd. That's one. And number two is that I just really, really love the flexibility that Wish offers on this team. Just being able to keep everything healthy is so crucial to, like, it makes up for the fact that Quillfish doesn't have Pain Split, for example. And it just keeps, helps offset Arcanine's Stealth Rock weakness. I mean, with leftovers and Morning Sun, then Arcanine generally gets by. But just being able to make it even more sturdy is just wonderful. Wish on the switch to, let's say, Moltres, and even a Specs Air Slash isn't going to break through because you healed up the Arcanine. In that scenario, you'd probably go to Clefable, but generally, it's just as actually in this battle, I used it, and I believe, Wish up to Arcanine just to really keep it at full health. So that's why I love Leafeon. It's just such a great poke. It doesn't need to run Wish necessarily. You can also do things like Heal Bell and Roar, which are two other moves it has that Tangrowth doesn't. I definitely considered having Roar because having a second Roar poke would be really, really great. But Wish, again, more variants. This is why I really got the DPP UU fever. I just wanted to explore all these options that were in my head. So, yeah, so that's Leafeon, and another big thing about Leafeon or Tangrowth is both of them have knockoff, and that's really crucial because spikes are often, like, we just mentioned how Arcanine generally heals its Stealth Rock weakness off fine with leftovers that are not being impeded, and by permanent sand or hail most of the time, because those teams are gimmicky. Hail is stupid, but that's another discussion. And that's why I have Clef for such matchups. And Wish helps a lot as well. But yeah, so the idea is that spikes, Milotic can generally heal off spikes pretty well because it's getting lefties, it's recovering. And obviously Milotic is not going to be going one-on-one with Leafeon, but it's the general idea remains that there's a lot of Pokemon out there that heal off the spikes with lefties, and this is, how we mentioned Arcanine roaring things around to bring things into Zam range? Well, it's the same idea with Leafeon's knockoff. You remove the lefties, and suddenly, things are not healing passively anymore, and suddenly Zam is a lot more threatening. So that's how it works there, and Tangrowth could do that as well. I would not drop knockoff there. So yeah, the team just works together beautifully and facilitates Zam. It's great in its own right. Oh, and I also, another note, besides Leafeon taking things after rocks, it also has special defense EVs to live a Life Orb Ludicolo Ice Beam after rocks, because rain can be really stupid in this tier, and I wanted some security. So, yeah, Leafeon is just fantastic. I really love this team. So let's get into the battle. So my opponent is Brufasa, aka Fatty. That is a name he gave himself. I'm not being mean, I promise. So I'm just going to refer to him as Fatty because it's easier to say. Promise I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. So Fatty was around when DPP was the main generation as well, and he also was a big UU guy. So I really was looking forward to playing him in this first game because I really love it when you play someone else who really genuinely plays the tier because they love it. Like, not that there's anything wrong with this, but a lot of people will play, whatever tier in these kinds of side tournaments just because it's a fun thing to do, and that's great. I'd do that myself, and it's a lot of fun. But generally, they don't really have a personal stake in the metagame they're playing. They're just kind of like, all right, just throw me a team and I'll figure it out. Yeah, and that's fine. It's always just great to play DPP UU in general, or whatever tier this phenomenon is occurring in. But I really love it when I'm playing someone else who also plays and really loves this tier, especially someone who's been playing it as long as Fatty has. So it's there's just so much more of a personal touch and investment to the playing and the teams, of course. The playing because they're considering the options, they know what's going on, and there's something about the connection there. Okay, I'm not going to presume some sort of connection between old DPP UU players when they play each other, but I always felt it's awesome when that the other guy is also really enjoying it. So we are not playing DPP UU for some sort of glory here. We are playing this metagame because we really love it. And, knowing the other guy is enjoying it, as much as I am, or the same way I am, is just wonderful. It's a beautiful Pokemon phenomenon. And there's also the factor that their teams are going to be really interesting because, they think about this tier in interesting ways. They love it. And they will bring a personal touch to their teams, and you'll see something interesting, you'll see something creative. And yeah, I'm not saying that, we've been playing this tier so long that we start using stupid gimmicks. No, far from it. It's just, and actually Fatty's team that he brought is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And that's why I was looking forward to this game so much. All right, let's get into the battle. So, my Missy lead comes face to face with a Venusaur lead. Stop showing Will-O-Wisp. Okay. Venusaur lead. All right. So Venusaur lead is generally good, even when it's a standard Life Orb set, because lead Rock Spikes Omastar is really popular and really good and really hard to safely stop from setting up its hazards. Then, of course, there is the possibility of Scarf Lead Venusaur, which is more popular because, number one, with Scarf Sleep, then you stop spikes from Lead Quillfish, which is really big. This phenomenon goes back to when Frostlass was UU, and it was impossible to stop it from spiking on you turn 1 if you didn't Scarf Sleep it. And Scarf Venusaur is also great as a lead because with HP Rock you threaten out would-be annoying Pokemon and Moltres and Scyther, who are also popular leads. So, and now when Moltres and Scyther know that HP Rock, the threat of HP Rock is looming, then they can switch and you can get a sleep off, and it's just great. You got to be careful for Dougie switching in on Scarf Sleep. But, that's why Life Orb Venusaur lead is also great, because they think they have you locked in the Scarf Sleep and they have a free KO, and then you just go up 6-5 for free early on. So, yeah, Venusaur, great lead. So, with Missy, I remember thinking, alright, I gotta just Will-O-Wisp this, not because I want Missy damaged or sleeping, remember the whole pursuit thing, or, drawing the dark types, drawing the pursuiters? Obviously, but Missy is still going to be useful even if it takes a sleep or a Leaf Storm on the first turn. One, because I have Wish from Leafeon, and two, because it is not the only thing that can draw in the Pursuiters. That's what Arcanine's Roar is for. So, and it can still come back and be useful if I play it well, because Missy is tanky and fast and has great immunities to things like Close Combat and Earthquake. Many of which are often choiced. So I just want to see what this Venusaur has to do. And it's also important because Venusaur is the best Pokemon on the tier. It's always threatening. And you don't want to doing things for free if you can help it. And I don't think that going on the back foot against Venusaur on the first turn, when I have the option to cripple it with Will-O-Wisp, is really a good idea. I mean, if it Scarf Sleeps, it doesn't even hurt me. So that's totally fine. So Will-O-Wisp was the right move, see what it wants to do, and once I know what the set is, then I can start, getting an idea about what the rest of his team might be. A Life Orb set might indicate something more bulky offensive or balanced, and a Scarf thing might indicate something really fast-paced, which wants to overload on sluggers and uses Venusaur as its Scarfer to patch up holes and get off to a good start early on. Those are just hunches, but you start putting together these ideas of your opponent's team right from the first turn with every little bit of information you gain, and the rest of the game becomes clear in your mind. So, and Scarf Venusaur is just a great Pokemon in general. When its Leaf Storm becomes fast, then yikes. So, alright, so the move is Will-O-Wisp. I go first, so not Scarf, burn, and take a Life Orb Leaf Storm. Not great, but, I'm not going to threaten to get KO'd by Stealth Rock or anything, so that's very helpful. So now the options are, Shadow Ball it, bring it down, Destiny Bond, try to guarantee it goes down, or switch. I feel a lot less threatened by a -2 Life Orb Burn Venusaur. If it attacks again, then it's taking a lot of recoil, about 25%, yeah, 12.5%, 22.5%. So it's still a lot, and it might not want to even stay in and eat a Shadow Ball. So I'm going to switch because I want to get up rocks as soon as possible. And if he Life Orbs again and thinks maybe I want to stay in and sleep the Clef, I can maybe go back to Missy and have that as sleep fodder. I don't want to risk. I don't think Sleep Powder is coming on this turn because that could very easily go badly if Missy goes for a Shadow Ball. Because then you're stuck synthesizing. That's my term for using synthesis. And Missy is gaining even more lefties, and you're just on the back foot. So I don't think Sleep Powder's coming here. It's not irrecoverable because, again, we know Clef gets a lot of free turns on the ever-present Milotics of the tier and Registeals and whatnot to get up rocks. And it's not Pursuit Week. I mean, it doesn't love the possibility of Doug, but generally it's worth trying to go to Clef here. So, see, Venusaur's already chunked pretty nastily. So now a Clef and a Skuntank comes in. I gotta set this to slow. So he does not want to risk Venusaur getting damaged either because Venusaur is really valuable. Because, I mean, later it can sleep and then throw off more Life Orb attacks. So, and, having it go down to take out a Missy, it might not be the best choice, especially when he has a Pursuiter. So there's his Pursuiter, there's the Skuntank, and that is an underrated Pokemon. Skuntank is really cool because it has Stab Pursuit, and it resists Venusaur stabs, which is really valuable. And it has Sucker Punch and Explosion, so it's a pursuiter and a huge threat in its own right. Aftermath is a really cool ability. There's of course the possibility of something like Taunt preventing me from getting up rocks, but I don't want to play too afraid, because yeah, okay, it taunts, so what? That's not really a problem. I'll go to Quillfish afterwards and see what's going on. See if there wants to be a double switch. I'm still threatening my hazards. If he just wants to keep taunting all day, then he's not really going to be threatening me. And yeah, and I don't think a Skuntank is going to explode because, it needs to be alive to pursuit stuff. So as nice as that would be, plus there's the possibility of him just booming into something like Registeel immediately and that not going anywhere. So all in all, I feel quite safe in getting up rocks early on, and in comes Regirock, another underrated Pokemon. Two NUs in this game. Now, I would hesitate to call Regirock truly underrated anymore because it's seen quite a bit of usage in the last few years. But it's still an NU Pokemon being used to great effect in UU, and seeing another great NU Pokemon being used in UU is awesome. Two of them on the same team, so that's what I'm talking about with the personal touch. So Regirock in, I know that's going to just set up rocks, and Regirock is a great Pokemon in UU. So I'm going to go to Quillfish and start pressuring with spikes. So here come the rocks. I mean, it can stay in an Earthquake if it wants, but I'll just switch to Leafeon or something after and go from there. It's not going to want to explode on me safely because of Protect, and I can double switch around. So, and I'll have the threat of spikes lingering. So Skuntank is already going to be going to come in at 75 next time. Venusaur is going to be, really low on health. So spikes are definitely the move here. And in comes Hitmontop. And this is the assumption that bulky Quillfish is just going to be passive. So, and I mean, I can't, fault him for making that assumption, because most would, because the set is kind of a rarity. So this is another reason why I really love the synergy on this team. It's that, yes, Mismagius is the spin blocker, but you don't want to rely on it entirely being the spin blocker and the pursuit bait, because then you might try to have it do too much and you might get overwhelmed. So that's why an offensive Quillfish that can directly threaten spinners like Hitmontop and Blastoise, that's another big one that would normally really give Quillfish a hard time. Being able to threaten the spinners that way without having to fall back on Mismagius gives Missy a much easier time in doing its job of baiting in the pursuiters. So I really love that synergy. And Quillfish just blows up Hitmontop and down it goes. So even at -1 attack, bulky Adamant is the way to go on Quill, so your Aqua Jets hit Dugtrio hard and your Explosions threaten Bolt Clef. And yeah, Hitmontop just drops. So the presence of a spinner there definitely suggests there's some sort of Stealth Rock weak on the team. And that's really great because the hazards are staying, so Skuntank's going to get worn down, and Arcanine's Roar is going to really press the issue on whatever Stealth Rock weak comes in. Arcanine's Stealth Rock dragging Skuntank would be amazing. Arcanine's Stealth Rock. Arcanine's Roar dragging in Skuntank would be amazing. Arcanine's Roar dragging in Venusaur would be amazing. And Regirock getting worn down if it tries to switch into Arc is fantastic. So yeah, this is a great situation for Arcanine. So on the double down, I believe I went to Leafeon, sure. Gotta be honest, I'm not sure why I don't remember why, because this is June 2nd and today's July 21st. Yeah, I assume it's because I think I was expecting Regirock, simply because, it's good logic, because if Skuntank or Venusaur come in, then they're taking a lot of damage and might risk, it's I thought it was unlikely they would switch in when they're such crucial Pokemon, and they might be forced out immediately. Because if Regirock is forced out immediately, then that's still fine, because it's at full health and has leftovers. But these two don't heal in Venusaur and Skuntank. They don't passively heal with lefties. So if they're forced out, then it's really not good. Skuntank being forced out and coming in at 50 next time, that wouldn't be great. Venusaur would have it similarly rough, and it's also taking burn damage. So I figured, cover the Regirock, because that's I assume I was logical enough, because I don't think I would just randomly reveal Leafeon for no other reason. But yeah, if Venusaur and Skuntank come in, then that's fine, because they're taking the hazard damage that I want them to take, and I can answer them just fine. And Leafeon covers Regirock, because switching around Regirock is definitely more annoying than switching around those two. So, because even like a fresh Venusaur, like without a special attack drop, is much more manageable with Clef now, because it's burned. So that burn is really big, because it lets Clef kind of go one-on-one with Venusaur, because Venusaur can't just keep bludgeoning it with Life Orb Sludge Bombs, because otherwise it's going to get KO'd itself. So at worst, a one-on-one. So that Will-O-Wisp is really paying dividends. So I go for Protect here, just because I'm going to take advantage of that all that recovery that is afforded me. So this is another big advantage of Wish Protect Leafeon over Synthesis sets. So now Venusaur doubling in, expecting, not sure what it was expecting, maybe because Quillfish is gone, so it's unlikely there will be another water coming in, but I guess he's just trying to find opportunities to go for get the sleep off and get a Synthesis off, so good move. So now I go to Arcanine, because with Intimidate it's fine. I mean, even if Skuntank blows Arcanine up, that's fine, because Spec Psychic, bam. Regirock is going to be in Spec Psychic range soon, because it does often run special defense, because the job is to handle Moltres, and so it's not going to immediately drop just because there are rocks and spikes, but it's coming close. And I have a Leafeon still, so I would love for Skuntank to blow up on Arcanine if possible. But instead, I don't mind this one-on-one at all. So Arcanine on Venusaur, I just stay in, decide, all right, I'm going to Flare Blitz, because it's going to switch, or it's going to probably stay in and sleep, and if it misses, I'll take it out. I don't Extreme Speed for this reason, because I want to start my sleep timer ticking, so I can potentially wake up and still be useful. Arcanine is really important defensively, so that was big. So, if I can get the free KO, I can get the free KO, but I'm not going to risk trying to take out Venusaur, because taking out Venusaur isn't that important. It's not at all. So I would rather just be earlier on the path to waking up, and the longer I wake up, then the more I heal. Either Venusaur goes down anyway, or I can even Morning Sun potentially as it KOs itself, or I can just heal more as he tries to go for Synthesis and then switches out. So, and I can take Orb Sludge Bombs pretty well. So I wake up immediately, and I'm not going for Flare Blitz anymore, because if I can get the free KO on that turn, sure, and on the Synthesis, maybe, but that's going to be a lot of recoil. But the main reason is, like we just said, Venusaur is not really a threat. And I really want to Dragon Skuntank. I want to direct. If Skuntank goes down, then last is likely to be some sort of Stealth Rock weak Pokemon. Usually a Fire type, and then some sort of Water type. And because the Fire Water Grass Core is immensely popular in UU, it would make a lot of sense. And that just means as soon as Skuntank goes down, Spec Psychic will rip through that team. So I want to scout the remainder of the team. Honestly, I might have even used Roar on the Sleep Powder. That might have just that was probably more logical than Flare Blitzing. But I could see either, but I don't want to make a definitive statement either way. I think I Flare Blitz, but I think afterwards I think I probably realized Roar is smarter. So let Arcanine do its job. So Venusaur heals up and I Roar. So either a Dragon Skuntank, Dragon Regirock isn't the worst. I mean, it's going to be mildly annoying if he double switches to Venusaur on Leafeon, but Protect. I have Clef. I can handle some double switches with Rocks Up, because this team has a lot in the way of longevity. So, but the odds are I'm not going to drag in Regirock. I'm going to drag in either the last two unrevealed Pokemon. We're thinking Fire and Water, or I'm going to drag in Skuntank, most likely. So Roar, and what comes in but a Moltres. So that's where the spin is, and we see Leftovers. So this is a sub Moltres. Life Orb set at least gets worn down quickly, but sub Moltres is a pain. And what's really cool about Roar Arcanine is that even if you take a Toxic from sub Moltres or the rare sub Toxic Entei, Toxic as opposed to Calm Mind, it's still threatening, because you are not just hopelessly getting walled, but you are causing that damage everywhere else. So and you even can get Morning Sun and Wish from Leafeon and whatnot. But even if this Moltres decides to pretty much sacrifice itself to Toxic the Arcanine, then I can still drag in that Skuntank and still be threatening. Hell, if I drag in Venusaur next time, then it can't even sleep me anymore. So Roar is still the move, for sure. And if Moltres decides to sacrifice itself, then, that's one less Pokemon that needs to be weakened into Zam range. Zam takes it out from 50, but it has to Roost. So, but it's not going to have a chance to Roost out of Zam range at all if it, goes for Toxic here. So, move is 100% Roar, and it does Roost. So, who are we going to bring in? So, now we know there's Moltres, and it's going to be weakened, and there's Feraligatr. So, there's the water. And again, Zam, Spec Psychic monstrosity is going to happen later on. So, yeah, this is what Leafeon is for. Leafeon stuffs Feraligatr. I mean, even like boosted Ice Punches, Shrug Off, Wish, Protect, whatever. So, I think I throw up a Wish here just to keep my guys healthy for switching into Venusaur. Or Moltres, apparently. Yeah, Knockoff would have been fine, but I think because Knockoff removes Venusaur's Life Orb and makes it less directly threatening. Removing Moltres' leftovers would have been great. But Wish, I like Wish just to play it safe, especially if Feraligatr decides to do something funny, like staying in Ice Punch. So, Wish to Arcanine, not the most directly useful Wish, because I would have had leftovers, but, bring it to 100% instead of, slightly below 100 is definitely big. So, Wish is really nice there. So, again, Roar as he goes for sub, and I don't know if he was expecting Protect or something to be perfectly out of Feraligatr range, but this team has the bulk and the moves to play around Feraligatr nicely, even if Leafeon's not at perfectly full health. So, thanks to Arcanine's Roar and Extreme Speed and Intimidate and Physical Defense investment. So, and I get the Roar and I get Skuntank in. So that was perfect. So here's where I go for Flare Blitz, because I want to say, I don't think Skuntank should stay in, but on this at the same time, he can't exactly switch around hazards forever. Yeah, it would be great to Roar out Regirock, but what if he gives me Skuntank for free? What if he just stays in and crunches because he can't afford to stay in anymore? If he explodes, it doesn't really matter. But it would be, if he's going to give me the free KO, I'm going to take it. And he's feeling the pressure because there's all these hazards. Feraligatr's getting roared around, Moltres, Regirock, Venusaur. So he has to try and damage Arcanine somehow. So I go for Flare Blitz. Even if he goes to Regirock, that's fine. Skuntank's going to be, I guarantee by Flare Blitzing, even if I don't hit the Skuntank, it's going to be at 25% next time. And it's only going to be able to switch in... twice more, but it'll be even easier to deal with and even easier to clear the path for Zam. But I have a chance here to take it out right away, so I'm going to do that. So he goes for Crunch and gets a big crit. That does a ton of damage. So that would have done around 30-ish without. And that kind of blows because I go for Flare Blitz and I take out Skuntank. Now, I mean, it's definitely worth it. I'm not complaining about the crit because I would definitely trade Arcanine to, pretty much give Alakazam free reign. It still sucks though because Flare Blitz Aftermath goes first and does 25, and that's big. And thanks to Skuntank's huge HP stat, then the recoil is going to KO me, and it wouldn't have without the crit. But if that's the worst that happens, then that's totally fine. So here comes Regirock, and I decide, all right, time to unleash Zam. So I don't want Moltres coming in on. I don't think Moltres is going to come in because it's Missy, but I just didn't want to give... Venusaur, that's the big one. Because Missy on Venusaur might be a wasted opportunity. You don't want to give it a free sleep. Leafeon, you don't want to switch into it. So Zam is definitely the poke to go to here. And so Regirock gets down to 75, and I go to Leafeon because even if there's a double switch here, that just means Regirock is going to get worn down without having healed anything from leftovers. And if it does stay in and do whatever to Leafeon, Toxic, Stone Edge, whatever, Rock Slide, then Leafeon gets more health and it has an opportunity to use Wish or Knockoff to further the Zam sweep. So now, if Regirock takes a what's it called, a Leaf Blade or even a Knockoff, then the game is just over because Zam clicks Psychic 4 times and wins. Once it switches out. So I don't think he's going to stay in. So I think Leafeon still. Oh no, I do go for the Knockoff. I decided. Oh yeah, okay, no, I think that was the right move because I don't want him to to Toxic me for free. And if he goes to Venusaur or whatever, that's fine. Removing the Life Orb makes it easier to sit on with Clef. And I can protect for more lefties. I'm still going to be fine against Gator because it's not setting up for free anywhere, and it's shown to have lefties, so Clef can even T-Wave it. So there's that, and so knockoff hits Regirock, and it Toxics, and Leafeon is now on a timer, but that's fine because Zam is going to win this race. So that was really big. And Regirock is going to switch out to Moltres here as I go for Wish, just to... Because now, I don't feel pressured by the Regirock. I run the Calc on Spec Psychic, and I think I need... You know what, let me pull up the Calc just because it's a good habit. Zam, Specs, Regirock... yes, there we go. Yeah, so the tank, this deck spread is bad. I just assumed close to max split F because that's what Regirock should be running. So yeah, Spec Psychic is doing a lot of damage, but you want to be on the safer side here. So, but since it's knocked off, then that's totally fine. So Wish, Moltres comes in. I was considering knocking off again, but it's not really necessary. So I could engage it in a big stall war with Clef, but I decide this is Moltres is taking around. I think it's like 60 minimum for the standard. Oh wow, I totally underestimated Zam. I forgot. See that's why you put specs on the Zam, the big numbers, and it's not taking recoil, so it can take a flamethrower. So yeah, if you keep Zam low enough, then it's going to get destroyed by Shadow Ball or by Spec Psychic. So I decided go to Mismagius and guarantee even if Missy goes down, then it's going to leave it in what's it called, Zam range, especially with Taunt and Destiny Bond, so it can't roost Toxic Stall forever. So look at the Wish go off and heal Missy up, so now it can Shadow Ball multiple times without Flamethrower, without crumpling the Flamethrower, and really ensure it's going to leave it in Zam range. So there's Shadow Ball 1, Flamethrower decides is going to 2-kill from that range. But the move here, and we both thought about this for a while, but the move here is to, as you see there, I always love showing the timer. The move here is the Shadow Ball because if Moltres goes for a Roost, then the next Flamethrower will not KO Missy, and I can keep pressuring it. And if it does Flamethrower and KO me, then it's in Zam range. And I wind up getting a Spit F drop and ensuring that Zam is going to KO it, but it was going to get KO'd anyway. So now Zam comes in, claims it's KO. At this point, it's really just a Feral. If I really mess up, or if Feraligatr crits an Aqua Jet, which it might not even have. So Psychic. Oh, and I get a crit on the -1 Moltres with my Spec Zam from 55. Yikes. But yeah, there's Regirock, and just out of range, but that's fine because the only threat at this point is Feraligatr, potentially DDing or something getting out of hand, but it can't set up. Even if I switch to Clef, it couldn't set up there safely. It's certainly not going to switch it on Leafeon or set up on Leafeon. Regirock, if the Rock Slide hit, then it's not going to be able to protect itself. Even if it is protecting the last slot, it's not going to be able to prevent itself from getting forced out one more time. And the second it gets forced out, then Zam just wins by clicking Psychic. So I go for Leaf Blade just to, don't care if it, thwops into Venusaur. As soon as Regirock switches out, then the game is over. So Toxic again, and now we can go fast because, Feraligatr will not get a chance. So he decides to try some desperation stuff by switching in. I go for Knockoff. I forget why I went for Knockoff instead of just Leaf Blade again. Probably didn't matter. But, so it tries to DD, so it might not have had Jet, but, yeah, so there's Leaf Blade, and Leafeon's going down. Venusaur's going to finish off, but Leafeon put in so much work here. Those wishes just really helped out, as you see. Tangrowth would have been great here, too, of course. But there's the Spec Psychic, hilarious overkill, and then Regirock goes down to Hazard. So this is a really, really fun first game. I'm going to take one of my patent bathroom breaks, and then we will continue. I am really enjoying myself. Alright, so yeah, that's what I meant, like, with the personal touches. Like, I don't think, most other people who are just going to get thrown a team are going to have a team with, 2 NU Pokemon and, Feraligatr and a sub Bruce Moltres. Oh, I love that. So, yeah, next up we are going back to the team builder for a moment to check out team number 2 with the Quillfish lead. So, this was a kind of weird... I was inspired by this old Java team from 2010 that I really loved running. It used a lot of really cool stuff for the time, like Suicide Quillfish as the Frostlass replacement, especially defensive Torterra, which was just amazing. And his team had Subcharge Rotom, and it had a T-Wave Slowking, which was really cool. But the crux of it, besides the fast spikes and the unkillable Torterra, was the offensive combination of Kangaskhan, which has Scrappy, so ghost types can't switch into its normal stab, and Scarf Primeape, who were both really underrated and really, really strong. So I decided to facilitate Primeape more by using a Pursuiting Spiritomb, and I decided to use Offensive Milotic over Slowking, because Offensive Milotic is permanently underrated and amazing. So this team is, fairly simple spiking offensive team, more fast-paced, and I decided, usually Kangaskhan runs Band, but I decided I don't have the perfect defensive core here, so I decided to go with Silk Scarf to give it some flexibility. But yeah, it's a really, really threatening team, and it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of simple, really. I don't have as much... the synergy is... it's pretty much outlined. Spike up, get the hazards. Pursuit, early U-turns from Primeape are just devastating. You either bring in an opportunity for Offensive Milotic to blast something, or you bring in something that Spiritomb can pursue, like a if it's like a Mesprit or something, that's perfect. But like another Ghost, for example. So Primeape U-turning with Spikes Up is just wonderful. Kangaskhan is crazy, crazy hard to deal with, and Offensive Milotic is great because pretty much everything that can take hits from these two is threatened by Milotic in some way, and vice versa. The Registeel and Clefable that threaten Offensive Milotic are really, really irritated by those guys. Now, the opposing defensive Milotic is with an Ice Beam is definitely... this is why I don't think this team is my finest work. I definitely have the options to play around it, but I got to be really, really careful with the pressure. And that's why I put Encore on the Scarf Primeape, which is a really underrated move, and I have to put the music back on. But... Guided meditation from YouTube Premium. That's what I need. So, yeah, our Encore Scarf Primeape really helps, you got to get those hazards down, got to apply a lot of pressure. If the Milotic doesn't have Ice Beam, and many bulky Milotic don't have Ice Beam because they're trying to fit in Toxic and Haze and Refresh, and sometimes even HP Psychic if Toxic Rogue's a threat, then yeah, fine. But if it does have Ice Beam, then it's kind of annoying. So that's why if I were to use this team again, I would definitely have to give it some serious reconsideration. I might have to put Band back on Kangaskhan. I might have to, use Band Primeape maybe. That would be really awesome. Reconsider Milotic or the Milotic slot. Overall, I think this team is decent, but definitely has room for improvement. But at its, overall, it is fundamentally pretty solid. Just... having to be that careful around Milo is irritating, but the thing about especially defensive Torterra is, of course, that it can take an Ice Beam from full health because it's a monster, and, Overgrow Woodhammer, goodbye Milo, so that's another option. But definitely get the spikes, put on the pressure, and, threatening it with Will-O-Wisp from Spiritomb is nice for more pressure, because if it has Refresh, then it's not hitting Torterra. And then Primeape's Encore becomes better, Kangaskhan's Fake Out, that kind of thing. They work really well in tandem, forcing recovery and locking the opponent into that recovery. So it definitely could be ironed out some more, though. So my opponent was M Dragon, and I did not play this game great either, so warning. So there's the Omastar lead, and there's Quillfish, and right away I go for Spikes because I don't want to just taunt on an Earth Power and go and just get Spikes and die without doing anything. So what I really should have done afterwards, because Spikes on Earth Power worked out as planned, but what I should have done afterwards is just go for Taunt, because the idea behind Waterfalling here was to break Omastar's Sash, but here's the thing. If I Taunt, then afterward, and I just get KO'd for Spikes, Afterwards, I will force the Omastar out with my offensive Milotic, and it will lose its Sash anyway, and I do it without letting it get Hazard. So that was already really, really foolish of me. And, alternatively, I could have done something else entirely, and I could have just gotten more layers. Because if he wants to go for rocks, then I get 3 layers of spikes. And that would be really valuable. So one of those two, but not Waterfall. And then I Waterfall into Boom, so he only gets rocks at least. So not the worst thing in the world, but definitely not optimal. So go to Scarf Primate because it's threatening. He goes to a Torterra, and I should have Ice Punched. I really, really should have Ice Punched. So I don't know why. I assumed he would not just let Torterra stay in and die to Ice Punch. But what I failed to consider is that this is an offensive team, a really offensive team. It's not going to have great Primate switch-ins. Just Ice Punch forced the issue. Nothing he switches to is going to be enough of a pain to warrant the risk of having to switch into Torterra. On the bright side, U-Turn does chunk it really hard. And I have no choice but to go to my own Torterra, which means I'm probably not getting rocks. And Life Orb Torterra does a ton with, even if Jolly, which I think most of them are Jolly, but just assume Adamant just because. So, Spud F. So yeah, Woodhammer does a lot. The thing is, it's taking a lot of recoil, so it's pretty much, going down with you. And I also don't have a Grass Resist on this team, which is generally fine because especially defensive Torterra eats up Venusaur pretty well, and Sceptile can be out-offensed. Same with something like Leafeon, although that one's also annoying. See, this team is definitely showing a lot of weak points. But Torterra is a pain. But, I mean, it could be worse than just going down and, playing 4-4. Because, see here, it's going to do, let's assume 54, 64, and it's doing a lot of recoil. 11%. And 11% plus Life Orb, so the Torterra is basically going to KO itself, I think. Because it has to Woodhammer again, so it's going to go down to, 28 or something. Depending on showdown rounding. Then it has to do it again after. So, Woodhammer crits in KO. So, I don't know how much that one mattered, but it was definitely irritating. So, I just go back to Primate. Generally, because... No, I don't think that one mattered, actually, in retrospect. It was definitely irritating at the time, and I get a very useful crit back. But I just would have gone to Primate and U-Turn again. So, that one was frustrating. So, now I go to Kangaskhan to try and make up some lost ground. Because of Fake Out guaranteeing some damage. But it was really, really, really stupid of me not to Ice Punch. So I'm messing this game up all sorts of ways. So Fake Out, not doing a ton because it's Silk Scarf. But I have no choice. I can't switch around the Scyther, so I have to stay in. And but that's fine. U-Turn does a lot, but he goes to Kabutops. And I should not have Double Edge. I should have just... I mean, it does a ton, which is great. But I should have just Earthquaked because a normal resist was obviously coming in. Not a Ghost, but a Rock, and Kabutops is really popular. And it was very obvious as soon as Scyther showed up, because even on an offensive team, you need to have the spinner. And Kabutops is a great offensive Pokemon in addition to being a spinner. So that was a very, very obvious top switch, and I just keep messing this one up. But, I mean, it wouldn't have KO'd, but I could have, in addition to saving myself some recoil, which can be nice, I also would have... Kabutops, Kanga here, physical attacker, Kabutops, and so it's not, it's Silk Scarf, but it's, it's Adamant, so EQ is doing a ton, close to KO after Rocks, and then Sucker Punch definitely finishes it off, and I think he's going to Aqua Jet to try and get around my Sucker Punch, then I can just switch to my Offensive Milotic, which outspeeds even Jolly Kabutops. Offensive Milotic has a fantastic speed here. Outspeeding things like Blaziken is just amazing. So you see, and I even gave myself some more recoil. But yeah, Double Edge hits hard, so... Kangaskhan itself is great. I just didn't help my case a little. So 10% recoil, also not great. So that was very, very... I mean, it was a tough prediction against Scyther in that situation. But, I mean, I was behind because of my own foolishness, so I had to bring it back somehow. So, to my credit, I do get Milotic in on Aqua Jet, which is fantastic. And I go for Hydro Pump because Toxic is common on these teams. The T-Spike's absorption, the water resist. I don't wind up giving it dry skin, so that's something. But I didn't mind Toxic coming in because I have Spiritomb. And I don't mind Toxicroak, Nasty Plotting, or Swords Dancing or anything, because it has to run, because Spiritomb often runs Psychic, and I don't mind just burning it and then dealing with it after. And if it, basically the saving grace here might be Milotic, because it can go one-on-one with so many pokes. It outspeeds Kabutops, it can take a hit from Scyther, and Scyther's in Ice Beam range now. And the last, Houndoom, which seems very, very intuitive here. I mean, Houndoom or a Ghost. His own Spiritomb would have been likely. Houndoom makes more sense because it switches into Will-O-Wisp better, but Spiritomb spin blocks and also pursuits for Kabutops' spin or just facilitating Toxicroak. So it could have been either. But again, I don't really mind Houndoom switching in, even if it gets a Flash Fire boost, because I have Milotic, and Houndoom is usually not on a team like this. It's going to be more pursuing and not going to use some sort of like Pasho, Nasty Plot, HP Grass kind of set. So that's not really the concern. So Pursuit critting, that really bites. I don't mind eating the Pursuit because he's probably Life Orb and there's more damage. And Milotic hitting the field, healing. Toxicroak is on a timer with spikes and ice beams, and it doesn't have Black Sludge, so it has Life Orb, so getting worn down even more quickly. Maybe even Scarf Primeape can be a threat. So Milotic and Primeape are keeping me alive here, but I need to have gets all the use I can out of all these pokes. So, and the Pursuit crit, which does a ton, regular Pursuit, I mean, good move, but it would have been fine. But now Spiritomb is dead, and having it alive would have been really, really helpful. So now Milotic comes in. I decide launching a Hydro Pump simply because with Spiritomb down, Houndoom is no longer needed, and he needs to preserve his Toxicroak. He does not need to, risking it to an Ice Beam would be stupid. So I think what he's going to do is to just try and bring down the Milotic. And arguably I could have recovered. I don't know, but he goes for a Dark Pulse. I just go for a Pump because Dark Pulse doesn't really do much in general because Milotic, because Houndoom needs a good amount of attack investment to. I mean, it splits between special attack and attack, but it doesn't just go max special attack usually, just because it needs some investment on Pursuit and Sucker Punch to avoid getting dugged. So I decided to go for Hydro, take out the Houndoom. That'll be helpful. I can still bring because Milotic's still outspeeding Kabutops is still what makes it a threat in conjunction with Primeape, and but then Houndoom crits again, so that one really sucks. Thank God I hit Hydro through Dark Pulse flinch. Maybe I should have recovered. I don't know. That one I don't know about, but the two in a row really bite. So now Croak comes in and vacuum waves Milo, and I can't really switch to because it doesn't matter if I sack Spiritomb or Milo because Kabutops is going to Aqua Jet at this point anyway, so that really bit. So now I go to Kanga, trying to finish it off with Fake Out. I guess I should have tried to predict. At this point, it's just, he's going to Aqua Jet, and he's Jolly, so he's going to beat me to the Sucker Punch. At this point, it's just too little too late. So at least Kabutops goes down because of Life Orb. But at this point, I have to, try and make some miracles happen with Primeape's Scarf Ice Punch, some crit freezes. But even that's not going to be enough because if he's banded Scyther, then he's just going to finish me off with Quick Attack after Vacuum Wave. So he makes the right move here. And just vacuum waving, ensuring minimal possibility for nonsense. And yeah, that's the game. So that one really bit because even after my awful start, I could have brought it back. But the crits really sealed the deal. If I had played, but that's the thing. I mean, yeah, the crits really did suck a lot. But if I had played better, then it might not have come to that. And I definitely had the opportunity to play much, much better. So, I mean, yeah, crits suck, but that I'm going to take most of the blame for that one, like a good 90-95%. Obviously, back-to-back crits are dumb, and look how close it wound up being even with them. So, who knows, but that's what happens. So, and still, even a shitty game of DPP UU is still a lot of fun. So, next game, I'm looking for some redemption against Thiago Nunez. I should also mention M-Dragon also played DPP UU when it was the current generation, so that was awesome. I don't know if Thiago Nunez played... in fact, I think this team he was using was a team of his from the current generation. I think he used something like this during when Heracross was briefly in UU. Yeah, that was crazy, Heracross in UU. But yeah, so Thiago Nunez, I don't know if he played DPP in the current generation, but I know he's really been playing it in more recent years, so it's not like he doesn't know what's going on. So I decide to go with some more. Team first. So Spike's offense, this is a different kind of... I want to use Scarf Primeape again because it's just so awesome. And this was a different kind of way of facilitating it. So the basic idea is you get up hazards with Omastar, and then Venusaur shuts something down with Sleep. And that makes it more worth throwing away, let's say, using your lead, sacrificing your lead to get up rocks and spikes. You know, it kind of evens up the playing field, puts you ahead, makes it easier for the frailer offensive pokes like Blaziken and Primeape to come in more easily. And Venusaur and the fighting types have fantastic offensive synergy. So then there's Spiritomb, Kabutops, so lots of priority, lots of offensive firepower here. It's really cool because the only really safe switch to something like Life Orb Venusaur with Rocks and Spikes, I mean, even a Cursed Sleep Talk Registeel is going to be pressure because I have 2 super effective stab moves against it, and it doesn't control its own sleeps, and it's not really threatening while asleep. So it can heal, it's not really threatening. So the other one would be Wheezing, Rest Talk Wheezing, and you know, that one can potentially be irritating, but if it also like eats the sleep and doesn't control its own sleeps, then you know, I will definitely batter it down with Venusaur, you know, maybe threatening, you know, pretend like I have a Psychic on Spiritomb, pursued it for a little bit, you know, pressure it with Blaziken with Rocks and Spikes is going to be dangerous, and eventually Wheezing will get overwhelmed because it's going to be absorbing the sleep, otherwise you just get a free KO on something else, and that lets you overwhelm it for a late game Primeape destruction. So even those guys can, even Rest Talk Wheezing can be overcome. Just the frenetic offensive pace of this team. I think this this team I used here, I think I made it before I made the team I used against M-Dragon, but I think it's a better version of what the team below was trying to accomplish with the Scarf Primeape offensive momentum cleanup. So, Omastar, Scyther lead, that's easiest rocks ever. See what the Scyther is. That is not banded Scyther because this Omastar has like no bulk whatsoever. It's very fast. Okay, the dimensions are fine. So yeah, just get up rocks and see what happens. There's going to be a spinner when you see a Scyther lead, but that's fine because you know the team is built to deal with that. You have all the offensive pressure in the world and a ghost to disrupt it. So rocks go up, and I check the calc, and Slowking, awesome poke, and I will be able to get spikes without dying. So that's great. And Surf brings me down to low HP, that's fine. Omastar was just going to be Omastar at, you know, 60 whatever percent it was, 68, then it was just going to be relegated to death fodder to anyway. So may as well get the spike out of it. Value, that's the bottom line. And I'm not going to go for the second layer of spikes because it's not going to be enough of a tangible benefit to warrant being 5-6 down. And instead, I would prefer to have a death fodder. That's really big for offensive teams like this that don't like switching around. You know, being forced to sacrifice something would not be pleasant. But having the Omastar to, you know, throw away and not really lose much, that's really good. So I go to Venusaur, even if he Psychics here, which is a very good chance, specifically to cover a Venusaur switch, which is very likely, then I'm fine making it because Slowking is going to stay, or not going to stay, and I'm going to Synthesis on the switch and see what comes in. So Psychic hurts, I mean, good move for sure, but I'm going to I'm going to Synthesis up and then see where we go from there. So Registeel comes in, that's fine. I'm going to sleep. I see if it's Rocks or Curse Talk or whatever. You know, I'm assuming Rocks. Scyther and Curse Talk Steel don't really work together. I mean, not to say you couldn't theoretically, but most of the time it's going to be a more offensive team with Scyther and using Registeel as its glue, so it's Rocks. And the kinds of teams that Curse Talk Steel fits on are less directly offensive. So sleep the Registeel, fantastic, and now sleeping Registeel doesn't do much if you can't immediately threaten it out, but that's what Blaziken is for. Life Orb Blaziken with Rocks and Spikes down is crazy difficult to switch into, and that's why I launched the Fire Blast. Even if Slowking comes in, it's going to be forced to heal, and because most Slowking run a lot of special defense to handle Moltres. So even if it does come in, it's going to be forced to heal, and I'll get another free switch to Venusaur, and I can double switch and, you know, barrage the Registeel eventually until Venusaur itself is really threatening. I can even go back to Primeape and start U-turning and forcing in more Pokemon to start. So basically, Slowking force in, Venusaur force the Slowking out, go back to Primeape this time, then U-turn, and Slowking and Scyther can't switch in, so something else has to be revealed, and I get to get more damage on more of his team. So that's the plan right now. Just Fire Blast and don't let Registeel stay in and, no, I can take a hit. Maybe I'll wake up in T-Wave. So I Fire Blast and I get a burn, so that's lucky. So, but the Fire Blast does 32, which is a ton of damage. Absolute ton. So I hit the calc, and I remember thinking, all right, this thing does not have any more than something like 56 special defense EVs, which is, not likely. And I was just thinking, this might just be a bold Slowking. So, let's see, there's a Fire Blast versus a Calm Slowking, which most of them are. Then you switch over to bold and see it can't have any more than 56. Call it So I thought it was unlikely. I mean, not unlikely, but it's also possible that it just has no special defense at all, which would still work out because that's a 0 SpDef and that's doing 32. So even if he healed up to 50, then there was still a good chance I KO'd it from that range. I mean, if he had the, let's say, 68 or 64 SpDef, then still a chance I KO'd it. I mean, sorry for the burn, obviously. I'm not downplaying. That was lucky. But it was still a good shot that I KO'd it. There's still a good shot I KO'd the Slowking switching in with all the RNG factors considered with Fire Blast and HP Grass. Of course, that assumes Fire Blast hits, so lots of RNG, little RNG on turns like these. So it was still, depending on the spread, or it was likely or less likely to KO, but Pokemon gods, Arceus smiled on me for this one, saying, don't waste it after last week, so make the most of this little advantage, and I finish it off. So, great position. Scyther comes in, and I could go to Kabutops, especially because Scyther does not want to U-turn around with Rock Sub, so I could definitely pivot into an Aerial Ace, but on the other hand, I don't really want it taking damage if I can help it. I would rather just make sure Kabutops is as healthy and threatening as possible, rather than compromising its health, and for what reward? I don't think this is what Omastar exists to do, to be death fodder. I don't want to save the death fodder just so I can death fodder it later, when the price to pay for that move would be to make one of my most threatening Pokemon less threatening. So, Omastar comes in, even though it's going to be an Aerial Ace, and gets finished off. So, Kabutops comes in, and I was really interested. I'm just going to fire off a Stone Edge. Rock Spikes, no sense messing around. It's going to be hard to switch into this. It's Adamant, Life Orb, doing a ton to everything. No sense getting fancy. So he goes for Aerial Ace again, and I was really interested as what move that could be. And I was like, is that maybe like a Scarf Scyther? Because Band would be doing a lot more. Maybe not a lot more, but it would be doing more. Kabutops. And so see, and it would have done way more to Omastar with U-turn. And I was thinking, is it a Scarf Scyther? Which is, not, I don't think it's a great set, but not unlikely. But I realize now the more likely explanation is he was probably that set Swords Dance, U-turn, Aerial Ace, Roost with Lumberry, which is a great leadoff set. Handles a ton of really cool stuff. Or handles a ton of stuff. The Pixie leads, Oxy and Mesprit. And, it's generally nice to start Swords Dancing on the first turn against things like Omastar. Because with Roost and Scyther's deceptively bulky. So, remember, I think its stats aren't even improved upon going to... Well, I guess it's attack set, but they're more relocated. Like, it has the same base stat total, so... that's what I meant. So yeah, just Aerial Ace, because it wasn't that it was locked into Aerial Ace, it's that everything else was just going to be worse. Because he doesn't want to switch into Kabutops, so U-turning with Scyther, not really worth it. So Stone Edge thankfully hits and takes it out. Hilarious overkill. So here comes Clef, and this is where the move... Now Clef is going to be manageable on this team with my two fighting types, but it's still annoying. There's as anyone who's played OU can tell you, Clef, I mean, even when you have moves that can hit it, just whenever it comes in, it's just the biggest pain. And Registeel is similar, because I have all these Pokemon that can threaten Registeel, but it can still be irritating to switch into, because the Pokemon that can threaten it can't always switch in. So on a team like this, then you really want to limit its opportunities. And that's why I put Superpower on my Kabutops, specifically for these two, because that makes them go from, annoying but I can deal with them, to being able to threaten them almost from every corner. So, going from those 2 Pokemon, Blaziken and Primeape, that can threaten them to 3 is a huge, huge thing. Like, for advanced players who, those mixed offense teams, spikeless offense teams that have, like, only 2 explosions, then they often come up short, right? They're not as threatening as they can be, but once you make the jump from 2 to 3, then it's just a whole new world. It's a magic carpet ride. So, superpower, Bold Clef can live, I believe. We don't know what set this is. If it's bold or, see, because look how much Adamant Life Orb Stonage does to that. And, it's going to Thunderbolt, it's going to Pressure. Blaziken doesn't love switching in. But Superpower, it's going to drop most Clef. But even Bold, just being able to do that much damage, because then it can no longer switch into, it can't handle Venusaur, and Registeel is just free switch to the fighters. I mean, it's going to wake up soon, but still. So yeah, Superpowers is still going to drop most Clefs. Bold, Calm Mind, Max is not the go-to standard, not by a long shot, and it just drops, and that was a wonderful feeling. So Kabutops is amazing, and I really love Superpower on it. So here comes Entei. So last is definitely a spinner. So we see this kind of like more balanced structure. So it went against my expectation of a more offensive team that kind of hinges on Registeel, because that's good team building. It definitely subverted my expectation, to borrow a phrase, of being a more offensive thing with Scyther. But hey, Scyther on a cool balanced team, not bad at all, especially when you're packing a spinner to support Entei anyway. So Entei is something you really don't want to mess around with. Once it starts subbing and protecting, even things you thought checked it suddenly don't check it after a Calm Mind or 2, especially with Lava Plume burns in the mix. So it's basically like Scald, sub Calm Mind, protect Suicune, but in Gen 4. So you don't want to give it any room, so just Aqua Jet. It's not going to KO because of -1, but you're still going to do a lot. And, the sub protect thing only works when it's at really high health. And, even after Rocks and Spikes, it can potentially heal up, but after Aqua Jet, no worries. So this has HP Grass, so that is a more unusual set. I mean, it's not unusual, but like when you think of subbing Enteis or Calm Mind Enteis, and you think of sub Calm Mind Protect, and I guess you could still have sub Calm Mind, but you would have HP Grass in the last slot as opposed to Protect. So that's totally valid too. So I mean, that's a more surprise on this team. So that's really cool. I appreciate seeing HP Grass Entei. I assume it's going to be Calm Mind. It's not going to be like the lead Entei that plays like a stronger Arcanine, because that would be used as a lead, and it would not have leftovers like this one's ad. This one does. So yeah, it's too low to protect out of range without like breaking math. So I just go to Primeape in close combat. It might not even have Protect, honestly. It might just be so sub Calm Mind. I mean, Calm Mind Protect, sub Calm Mind, one of those two. I'm assuming sub. Can this play, please? Thank you. And so yeah, Primeape has free close combats, and Registeel going down means more sleep for Venusaur. Don't even know if it's going to matter at this point. But with the spinner, it's going to be Slowking, so probably not Blastoise, so Hitmontop or Donphan, and that's fine because Spiritomb into Venusaur is going to handle both of them. So even without the hazards at this point, it's really tough to lose this. It's because if the Entei's not protecting, then it's, and even if it did protect, then it would be really hard for it. It would be really hard even with like Foresight to at that point I could consider close combating with Primeape if I was expecting Foresight top. But Foresight top, it kind of died out because it's just generally not good, and Toxic Protect is better, so I probably would have gone to Tomb anyway. But yeah, the likelihood of him getting the spin off and protecting out of range with Entei was just astronomically low. So yeah, Donphan comes in, Spiritomb eats the spin nicely. This is not a bulky Spiritomb. It's an offensive set with black glasses and a lot of attack investment and some Spadef to handle Mismagius, but special attack and Spadef, that's what it's invested in. So it takes a lot from Earthquake. Might be an offensive Donphan too. It doesn't really bother me at this point because black glasses or Dread Plate, whichever one I used on that one. Sucker Punch, Dark Pulse into Sucker Punch will finish it off, and Vacuum Wave range, spin blocked, and Entei goes down to hazards as Blaziken gets the KO. That's what BKC stands for, by the way, for those who don't know. Blaze Kickin' Chicken, or Blazin' Kickin' Chicken. It's a name I came up with because I thought Blaziken was awesome when I was 12 years old. So, now you know. Alright, team number 4 of 5. This is a more standard balanced team because I wanted to switch it up from the Spikes approach as I had been using so far. And I decided, this just has good synergy. It's good Pokemon paired together. Uxie, I decided to use Knockoff on it, which is not really seen, but I think Knockoff is amazing in UU and underappreciated, as we know from my whole Leafeon Tangrowth rant at the beginning. So Rocks, U-turn, and Uxie doesn't really need its other moves like T-Wave, fine, whatever, but Knockoff, Rocks, U-turn, Psychic, Knockoff. So, I might have used something else over Psychic, I don't remember at this point. Let's check. No, it was Psychic. Okay, for some reason, I remember not using Psychic in this game when I thought I might, but Anyway, doesn't matter. So, yeah, Doug, and, yeah, you'll see there that that's a Specs Doug trio. And, yeah, so this is not my set. But before we get into the Specs Doug, which is not a joke, then we'll get into the rest of the team. Doug, Venusaur, great synergy. Sleep Powder, Stab, Synthesis, your move Registeel. Great with Milotic. And Registeel and Calm Mind, Life Orb, Clefable. So there's a lot of synergy going on. Lots of bulky win conditions, as much as I dislike the term win condition. That's what they are, setup options for winning the game. And they're just generally good at going one-on-one with a huge portion of the metagame. And there's a lot of longevity between them. You got 4 recovery moves on this team. Venu, Milo, Registeel, and Clef. And 3 of those are instant recovery, not rest, like Registeel. So, yeah, that's the idea. And so there's longevity, and so even Spike's teams, they're not going to love Calm Mind, Life Orb, Clef because it tanks stuff and it hits really hard. Defensive teams, you can definitely go the distance, especially with the pressure with the combination of U-turn into Doug and then Venusaur, which is forever threatening, and then Cursteel and a lot of PP on this team too. The Milotic is Haze and Refresh, because otherwise Subroost Moltres would be a massive, massive pain. And I usually don't like super passive Milo, but it does work on this kind of team. This is the exact kind of team where it is meant to work. You have to have offensive synergy elsewhere. If you're just trying to outstall everything, then that's stupid and unreliable. And boring as hell. If you're going to play DPP UU, you may as well enjoy it. So, I mean, you can enjoy a longer game, but just PP stalling for the sake of it, come on. So, it's not because I wouldn't even call it a super viable strategy either. But on this team, you really do need it for those other Pokemon, for those Moltres things that are otherwise really going to be a pain. And you need Haze to stop the other setup sweepers. So lots of pressure, and yeah. So the Specs Doug, this is a set invented by Eo Ut Mortis, and it's really nothing super fancy except the things it does are with Sludge Bomb you destroy Leafeon, and with HP Ice you destroy Torterra. And we've already gone over how threatening those 2 physical grass types are to a lot of teams. It's why I was considering Weezing quite a bit on my teams that didn't get to see the light of day. But, yeah, so that's why, and I really thought this team needed the insurance against them. Because if you look at that team, then, yeah, I can stomach a hit or 2 from Torterra. You got Uxie. I put defense EVs on Venusaur just to take things like Torterra better, as well as Azumarill and whatnot. But, and yeah, Clef can take a hit, but it's really uncomfortable. Having the option to KO it directly like that is really valuable, especially because on a team like this, against a team like this, Rock Polish Torterra is not going to bother with the Rock Polish. It's just going to start attacking, so you can take it out. And SD Leafeon is similarly dangerous. SD Leafeon is stopped by Registeel technically, but you don't want to go entirely on Registeel. And once you're HP icing for Torterra, you may as well throw in the Sludge Bomb. And having that extra insurance is really big. And you have to be more careful with trying to trap ground weak stuff, but that's totally fine, especially in conjunction with U-turn and Knockoff, removing leftovers, and Venusaur Sleep Powder. So lots of synergy, generally good team. Not a very inventive set of 6 Pokemon, but it's a solid one, and the devil is in the details. So we're going up against Chill Shadow, another great, more recent DPP UU player. He's had some really irritating inventions, and we are actually going to see them in this battle. So I go with my Uxie, which is going to get up rocks in the first turn against another Uxie that also gets up rocks. And forgetting my... Okay, yeah, so this is why I was suspicious, because like John Ralphio and Mona Lisa, yeah, because my Uxie is relaxed, specifically for slow U-turns. I didn't make it too slow because I wanted to outspeed things like Milotic, but for slower U-turns against other Uxie, then I definitely preferred it. So I was getting suspicious when his Uxie was also slower, and I thought, there are some Uxie out there that like to do Trick Iron Ball into Dugtrio, so you wind up trapping things that you normally wouldn't, like Moltres. And just generally a good move to get rid of, to afflict the opposition with a low speed and a lack of leftovers. So I was suspicious, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna knock it off. I don't want my Uxie getting tricked in Iron Ball, and he can still trick and remove my leftovers, and but that's fine because I won't be getting the Iron Ball, so I won't be affected by spikes, by earthquakes, by Arena Trap. So knock off, and and there goes the Iron Ball. So and he U-turns, and he was devastated, as you see there. So there's the knock, and on the U-turn he decided, like, I'm going to save this Trick Iron Ball thing for later. So as cool as it would have been to bring Spikes again and see an Iron Balled Uxie take Spikes damage, not quite. So Registeel comes in, and I'm just thinking, I am going to knock this off. I don't see the... but then he turns out oh, I guess I don't knock... Oh, good move, Kev. It's always great when you can surprise yourself. There's some vitality in that. So he went to Registeel because he didn't want to reveal... Well, first of all, it's not very revealing when you go to Registeel. It doesn't say much about your team other than you're running something defensive and bulky, which, the Iron Ball Uxie already kind of gave away. It doesn't exactly scream hyper offense. And also, if you're just going to switch back to Uxie for slow U-turns and trying to trick, then you'd go to Registeel because it doesn't lose health from switching into Stealth Rock, whereas Milotic would lose 6.25 if it switched in and then back out. So good move there. And I guess on June 24th, so a little under a month ago, then I had the foresight to see that coming, that he wasn't just going to let me knock his Registeel as well, and that he was just trying to get Uxie back in to try and trick away my Uxie's leftovers. And, then he would temporarily get his lefties back and get lefties of his own, and then I would knock him off, but then I wouldn't have leftovers, so that's the big takeaway. So I U-turn and get the jump on him, so, I'm proud of you, Pass Kev. I hope I hope you get that message. Anyway, heartwarming things aside, Venusaur comes in because my team is very bulky, and it's not really... I messed this up really bad, for the record. I should not have Leaf Stormed like I did. That was really, really... of all people to underestimate how bulky Uxie is, you'd think I wouldn't, but I did. I didn't calc, and this is just mind-bogglingly stupid. And I didn't go for Sleep Powder like I really should have. If I Sleep Powder that Uxie, that's great, because then it can't threaten the trick on me anymore. I mean, on the bright side, I Leaf Storm, I take the Uxie out, but what this does is that it lets him Psychic me, or, Zen Headbutt, but Psychic, and I'm now not going to be... I mean, I could switch around, but he can... if I were him, I would just Trick here and guarantee that something else is going to lose its item if I don't KO him. And if I do KO him, then I just get finished off by Doug. And Venusaur was such a big threat with my own Doug in the picture, and I could have saved the sleep for something else. And I even have defense EVs to make it harder for Doug to finish me off at high health. So I definitely picked my spot wrong. Venusaur and Uxie, fine, but I should have slept. So that frustrated me a lot, being so foolish. So I finished it off with Sludge Bomb, and Doug is going to come in and finish me off. And yeah, my defense EVs, I just assume banned, but a lot of Dougs are sub, and I get my Uxie Toxic. I assumed it was banned because, again, didn't calc, and I wasn't I was a little hasty to assume banned, and it should have just gone to Milotic probably. And I get my Uxie Toxic for my trouble, and that's really not cool because Uxie can be very annoying with knock. Because now that his Uxie is gone, then my Uxie has another free knockoff coming up, at least one. And now I'm going to be under more pressure because I eat rocks, I eat Toxic, and I U-turn. So yikes! So then I go to Milotic. So very, very foolish sequence by me there. Not my comfort zone. Having to adjust other excuses. So I go to so now I can't threaten because I'm assuming it's a Curse Registeel, and I could threaten it. The Registeel in and of itself isn't threatening, but it's if I played more patiently, I could threaten the Registeel with Knock and have a Venusaur with Doug backing it up and sleep and so very, very foolish of me there. So I go to Uxie now because at least I will knock something off. So his Registeel goes for Toxic, and my mind is instantly... I mean, I was already thinking with the Trick Ball, Uxie, and the Doug, yeah, might be some Entei fun going on here, but the Toxic Registeel sets my brain off because this is not going to be some support Toxic Registeel. They don't even run Toxic quite often. This is going to be that Curse Toxic Registeel strategy. So the basic idea is that most Milotic don't run Haze and Refresh. They'll run Haze or they'll run Refresh, but they won't run both. So if they run the Haze that they need to stop Subcall Mine Entei, then they will get Toxic when they try to Haze a Curse Registeel. And if they do have Haze, then they're going to get... And vice versa. I'm losing myself. But that's the basic idea. So, warning bells about Entei going off in my head. But like I said earlier, Haze, Refresh, Milo here, specifically for things like Entei and Moltres. So it's a great setup Chill Shadow has here. I think this team of his is very successful. Lots of really nasty synergy too. So Uxie comes in. At least it's threatening the knock. So no matter what comes in, I'm knocking off there. So Hitmontop comes in, and I U-turn right away instead of just knocking. Oh, I know why. I was afraid Dugtrio would come in and not really care about losing its Earth Plate and then pursue me for even more chip damage. So I was trying to get the jump on the Doug. So I get the jump on Hitmontop instead, and I go to my own Doug to Toxic. Yeah, not to Specs Earth Power because that's going to do nothing. Hitmontop has great special defense. But if I get the Toxic off on Hitmontop, that's great because that means him having the spinner with the Entei makes a lot of sense. And once my Uxie got Toxic, I got Toxic like an idiot. I mean, this is why his team is so threatening. The Toxics can be so brutal in facilitating Entei. And, clearing rocks off to make it even more ridiculous. Because it's already hard enough to deal with when it starts at 75%. So yeah, getting the Tox off on Hitmontop means that I can maintain my rocks. Because the spinner is now Toxic as well. And he goes for the spin. He really wants those rocks off. And now I go to Milotic. Simply because it's kind of like a reset play. I have a lot of special defense on this for Moltres, by the way. So that's why close combat from a bulky Hitmontop does so much. So I'm just going to start recovering. He's trying to Toxic there as well. Look at all this Toxic spam. It's a really threatening team CS has. So I don't care because I have Refresh, and I don't really need it to reveal that yet, but I do like an idiot. I should have just surfed. And he Toxics again. Smart move, trying to catch something. Yeah, so good move. And now, well, actually no. Now that's helpful because now he thinks I probably don't have Haze. So don't want to be too hard on myself. So that wasn't a bad move, making him think, all right, he might not have it. I mean, it's also not exactly an explicit downside to not let him know you have Refresh. So who knows? I won't overthink that one too much. So yeah, here comes Entei without rocks. So this is a massive pain. So I just go for Surf because the sub is very obvious. Because he's thinking, oh, he's going to Refresh, and I'm just going to start subbing, and eventually it's going to be bad. And this is a really dangerous, stupid, irritating game. Entei can be really dumb sometimes. So, especially if you mess up your previous setup and are on the back foot. So I'm just going to keep surfing simply because I can refresh at any... Oh, no, sorry, I refresh. I guess I thought about it better this time. So the thing about Entei is that pressure and protect and sub... Yeah, the PP drains very quickly. So I decided to go to Uxie to get rocks simply because, I get it in on a protect. That's really... That was a nice move, Kev. I realize how egotistical and narcissistic this must sound, but I really wasn't expecting myself to be heads up after some of the blunders in this game, let alone from the other games. So, protect, definitely clear there because you're trying to... It's not just about burning more surfs, it's about getting more leftover so you can create more subs. So here comes the Calm Mind. He thinks, all right, well, this thing's... He's just letting me set up for free. I mean, even if he thinks, he might still have Haze, then it's still not like he can do much better. So the Calm Mind, and the nice thing is that after the 2 subs, then he's not exactly going to be starting from full. Even once I switch out, get rocks, and switch back in, and Haze. So here comes the Protect, just for lefties, and because nothing else is going to be useful in the event that doesn't happen. in the event that the haze doesn't happen. You want lefties in case of haze. You don't want to be, lava pluming or whatever. It doesn't make a huge difference, but yeah, haze on the protect goes away. So now Calm Mind, you just got to keep surfing. He's not going to want to waste double protects. So now the question is, when is he going to protect? When is he going to Calm Mind? And it's hard to call. I wanted to err on the side of spamming Surf simply because he can't truly sub-protect forever, and it's likely, more likely than not, that he's going to try and catch me with multiple subs. And Surf has a lot of PP, thank God. So as long as I'm not completely idiotic, then I'll be fine. So there's Sub, and I go for Haze just to get rid of the Calm Mind. And there's Protect, and that's when I go for Refresh. So that was you can see how dangerous this game is, because 18 surfs really means 9 surfs. And I mean, Entei can't sub-protect forever, and I can definitely leave it low enough to finish off with Dugtrio, especially because I don't think an unboosted Lava Plume will KO me from low health. I mean, I'll verify that, but because Entei does not have great special attack, and these bulky sets often have little. I don't think they run much. Oh, Flamethrower isn't going to KO me from that range, let alone Lava Plume. So yeah, even after Rock. So yeah, that's my worst case. It's not like it's Entei, Milo beats Entei or the game is over, but it's definitely annoying. So once he protects, I can surf freely. So 8 surfs left, and now just got to start spamming, because yeah, you want to be careful of protects, but you don't want to let him get too many free subs either. So there's surf, and there's another surf, because, I mean, at this point, if he protects, he still can't, because he's not starting at full health, he can't really create that many subs. So see, down to 7 surfs. Yeah, there's down to another, so that's 3 subs in a row, and I just didn't want to, I figured I have enough PP to, even if he protects, then I'm leaving him at low health. And I feel like he's the kind of, it felt aggressive the way he subbed twice immediately earlier on, so I didn't want to get taken advantage of by that. So protect, and here comes because at 31%, then he's really forced into a corner with protecting to get that extra lefties, and that's when Haze comes off. And even if he subs there, then even with protect and whatnot after, hell, I could probably switch hard into Dugtrio after as he goes for. Actually, no, I wouldn't want to do that for Calm Mind. But, yeah, he was at such low health that even if he subbed again at 25, if he even had enough health to, or if he subbed again from 31, rather, then he wouldn't be able to create enough subs after. He would need multiple double protects, and Doug would finish him off after. So, yeah, now he's forced out on the Haze, so I make a double switch to Registeel. Oh, no, sorry, I missed the turn. I surfed as Milo came in. And that's fantastic, because rocks are. That was why the Uxie switching in was crucial, because now rocks are up, and Entei is going to come in at very low health, and it's not going to be able to set up safely again. So I surf into Milo, and now we're going to start fast forwarding, because his Milo is also Haze Refresh. And I just start cursing, honestly, just because I want to. This is going to be a PP burn for a long time, so we're going to fast forward through it. So rest, and now I go to my own Milo, and I realize that Curse Steel has a lot of Toxics, so, but I don't need all my Refreshes, and I don't need all my Hazes. He has 15 Toxics left, and hell, I could even bait one with my own Registeel. It's not like he's going to Toxic me 15 times. I mean, he'll miss before that happens, but I can also bait one. And I don't need all 42 Hazes, so, and he's only got 16 Curses. I don't really need it for Entei's Calm Minds anymore, so as long as I'm not stupid with my PP, then I'll be fine. Plus, I have Clefable to put actual pressure on him, which is what I do here, and I just fire off a Life Orb Thunderbolt, and he goes to Entei, and I don't know if that was the best move. Registeel could have been safer, but it didn't really matter, because that was the thing where Clef was going to put pressure on whatever switched in anyway, because... oh, now I go to Uxie and threaten the knockoff on Registeel, and I'm thinking, is he hesitant? Is he hesitating to go to Doug on Uxie? Now, I mean, he was hesitating before. Now, I don't think anything has changed much, so now he might be forced to eat the knock. So I go for it. Worst case, I remove Doug's Earth Plate and make it, do even less damage to Clef. And I get the knockoff on Registeel, so now I can even potentially finish it off with the Specs Doug. So... yeah, Uxie gets it off, even after my misplace earlier. Get a sweet U-turn crit for a whopping 8%, and now it's just going to be hazing the Registeel and Toxicking and Refreshing, and You know, my Surf PP doesn't even matter at this point, but I just go for it anyway. So Doug really can't switch in. It might be able to switch in and sub. I don't think it's gonna. I think Showdown is just rounding up in what it displays. So Haze, lots of hazing going down. I'm trying to save my Clef's PP. Like, my only real goal at this point is to, burn enough Milotic hazes, so that, if possible, so that my Clef can Calm Mind and sweep. Maybe I'll try it with my Registeel later. I have enough PP to run him out at this point, really. And Clef is threatening in its own right. Because Life Orb Thunderbolts, they're not 2 KOing Milo, but they hit hard. Milo doesn't have infinite. Crits and paras are going to come in, one of 22 remaining T-Bolts. Because Entei's pressure, even in death, always being annoying, meaning I have 22 instead of 23. So, yeah, Haze, Toxic, Refresh, stuff. Registeel getting worn down is nice. Haze, Toxic, Haze, Refresh, Haze. I don't even need to Haze is the thing, because I can just go to Registeel at any point, because I can switch like in and out of a +1 Registeel like 16 times and then Haze, and then it's like I had done it before. So there's the Toxic, one eventual Toxic miss. So there I crit Surf and bring it down to 24. So now if he rests, then Doug Show will finish it off. But he makes a great move and goes to his Doug. That was exactly the kind of move he needed to stay in the game. And I don't think he won a speed tie because I'm assuming he was Jolly. Maybe he was Adamant Earthplate because Doug Show can often afford Adamant in this tier. And maybe that's why he KO'd Venusaur. Maybe, who knows. It doesn't really matter either way because I don't really need Doug. Especially now that Registeel's been knocked off, especially, and Clef can actually really threaten it. So, PP stalling Milo is a matter of, well, also running it out of Surfs is nice, so it can't actually hurt my Clef, and I can just switch between Registeel and Clef forever. But that's nice. But it's a matter of keeping Milo, healthy enough to where, and I switched to Registeel just to mix things up, just to be surprising. Although I probably should have gone Clef, so he couldn't have randomly doubled the Doug there, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, it's just switching between Milo and these guys until Milo is out of PP, and my Milo uses less PP because I can switch in and out and then just recover and undo like 16 switches. So, but yeah, that's I can also just switch in and then switch out, haze, refresh, whatever, and yeah, there's that. And something actually happened recently. Yeah, so that's the plan. Switch between Milo and Clef, but not forever, but, just definitely make him burn more PP. So I go to Registeel, and I just start spamming Iron Head just to make Milo to burn PP. Rests up with Registeel. I go to Calm Mind, Life Orb, Clef, and I get a free Calm Mind. And my more pragmatic side is saying, oh, well, yeah, if he stays in, if he switches out, he doesn't burn sleep, and if he switches, then, fine, whatever. Or, yeah, if he switches out, he doesn't burn sleep, and if he stays in, then you get a free Calm Mind. But at this point, it really doesn't matter. So, Milo switches into the +1 Life Orb Ice Beam, and that's, +1 Life Orb T-Bolt, and takes a lot, and gets parried. I mean, it wasn't recover or haze stalling, because it switched in at +1, as opposed to switching in on the Calm Mind and hazing, which is the only time Milotic stands a chance. So here comes Clef. I just soft-boiled T-Bolt, decided to get the haze off. Toxic. This is on the refresh. Milotic comes in and heals up fine, but at this point I'm just like, whatever. I just want to spam T-bolts and make this Milotic burn recovery and wait for crits and paras to happen, because I have a lot of attacking PP and he can't really threaten me much. I'm not gonna waste time with Calm Mining. I mean, maybe I can come back and try this again later, but at this point I was really trying to get this game done. And just so you can see it, the last game is more exciting than this one. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting look at the more bulky side of DPP UU. A lot of strategies like this. Shield Shadow's team is really frustratingly good and threatening and obnoxious. So yeah, they're crit, and now I just soft boil stall Registeel, so it doesn't even have enough attacking PP to win, even if miracles upon miracles happen. And at this point he says, yeah. I mean, even without the refreshes, it was fine anyway. I think at one point I switched to Registeel into a Toxic. I don't remember. So yeah, that was that game. So we're now going to get into the last game, and I really love this last game. I wrote a huge forum post about Exeggutor, which I will link in the description because I don't want to just rehash that. And even if you don't like reading stuff on the forums, I really encourage you to read it because it's wonderful. Not to toot my own horn, of course, but I will say that this team is something. In the title, it says for Diogo because I built it for my teammate Lighthouses a couple of weeks prior, and he didn't wind up using it. And I decided, you know what? Last week we were already eliminated. I just want to use it. Don't care that it's similar to my previous stuff. Don't want to overthink it. Just want to have fun because it's really, really unique. It's got a great combination of pokes. I mean, Azumarill is awesome. Toxicroak, great synergistic stuff. You got the Ghost Pursuit thing going on. So it is similar to the other Spike's lead offensive stuff. But I really love Exeggutor here. And I'll, again, read the post I'm linking in the description for fuller details. But the basic idea is that, you know how, well, it's similar to Venusaur in that you have the Rocks and Spikes early, and then you shut something down with Sleep Powder, and you are, making up for the fact that you might be down a Pokemon, or, you lost 90% on your first Pokemon. As we saw in the game against Thiago Nunez, where Venusaur did exactly that. So Exeggutor is basically the same thing, but it has different defensive and offensive properties. So defensively, it is a Torterra answer. So, like this other offensive team, I mean, Torterra doesn't set up much. It's not safe, but Torterra is still like really threatening. Whereas on this team, with the presence of Rotom's T-Bolt, then a Rock Polish Torterra will definitely get a chance to set up and threaten. Or, I mean, it just has to attack. Because, I mean, Rotom revenges +2 Torterra because Tort is slow, but it's still going to get a KO. And with Eggy, then it's not really a problem. Exeggutor's physical bulk is just really nice in general. And what it does is that it facilitates that late game Rotom sweep, because if they have a Pursuiter, then they're going to have to try and use it to deal with Egg. And so it's kind of like the combination of the Spikes into Sleep Grass early on, and also the Missy Alakazam thing from the first team. So you combine those because you're getting the sleep off after the hazards go down, and you're drawing in the Pursuiters and really messing them up because Exeggutor's Leaf Storm is as strong as Moltres' Overheat. So they often can't switch in, and you're doing a ton of damage, and you're weakening them for the late game Rotom sweep. So then, of course, you have the physical attackers. See, again, 2 stab super effective moves against Registeel to make up for that. And the nice thing about Exeggutor, offensively, is that in addition to the super strong Leaf Storm and the Explosion, which is always massively helpful, I mean, blow up on something like an Arcanine and, Toxicroak goes crazy, stuff like that. But there's also the fact that it has Psychic, so it will not get switched into by Sleep Talk Wheezing at all. That's really, really huge. So yeah, otherwise it's just a cool offensive team, and I wrote more about it in that forum post in the description, so I encourage you to read it. So, my final opponent is Arc, who is another newer DPP UU player, but I know he builds a ton of teams in this tier. I know the other guys have as well. Actually, everyone I played in this tournament builds their own DPP UU teams. So I really enjoyed that. I wasn't facing anyone who was just kind of thrown in and accepting teams from anyone else. So that's why I felt like, one of the many reasons why I enjoyed this tournament, but it really felt like all my opponents had some sort of personal touch to their teams as opposed to just, opening a Pokepaste, copy-pasting it, and accepting the challenge without even looking. So, figuring it out on the fly. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but, when I'm looking for the full enjoyment, the full experience for a tier like DPP UU, then I really enjoy when I'm playing these guys who are making their own teams. And Arc really likes his unique stuff, so... But I wasn't really looking into player tendencies or anything like that. I just wanted to use this team because I really liked Exeggutor, and I liked the team it was on. I had a couple other ideas for Egg, but this was the fully developed one. So we lead off with Quill into Omastar. I have Earth Power for just this scenario, and he uses T-Wave, and alarm bells are ringing in my head once again because I'm thinking, all right, this is still probably just a standard Suicide Lead Sash Quillfish, but if it's T-Wave, I went for Earth Power on that turn just because I didn't want to get taunted, and I was, frustrated, but it's still fine because Omastar can still get something done potentially. But with T, because it's fast, and even offensive teams are going to have those slow pokes, like those Registeels, the Rhyperiors for the more offensive leaning kinds, and Donphans, and with good switching and U-turn, which I don't have U-turn on this team. I would have loved to. But then you are able to get Omastar in and get at least the rocks up. So not an ideal matchup, far from the worst. So Quill will get 2 layers of spikes at max, and if it does get those 2 layers of spikes, then Omastar will still have a sash and will be not taunted. and otherwise it just gets one layer of spikes. So that's what I'm going for. Earth powering twice and letting him get in his head about it. And no matter what his choices are, spike twice or spike into waterfall or spike into taunt, should be spike twice or spike into taunt. But I will be able to come back from that. Like in my game against M-Dragon, yeah, I should have done it differently, but just because I could have done it better doesn't mean he would have been ruined by it. There's still the capacity to outplay in situations like this. Now that I'm on the opposite side of that coin, I think a lot of people they just look at who wins the matchup in a vacuum. And I mean, yeah, not all matchups are going to be good for you, but you have to be able to come back. You're not always going to be able to change some perfect matchup out of your opponent. So, anyway, T-Wave is already. I know Arc likes his unique stuff, but I'm thinking, is this going to be some sort of like a paralysis spin on on more not standard, but like it's going to be like a Quillfish offense team, but it also has a lot of paralysis support to enable some really brutal breaking. So, I mean, that's my thing, because you don't casually toss T-Wave on a Quillfish lead. So, and I'm thinking, all right, no taunt. I don't think you can really fit. You want Spikes, Taunt, Water Move, Aqua Jet, or Waterfall, and then boom. So if there's anything you're going to drop there, it's Taunt, and just focus on getting the Spikes and the T-Wave, as opposed to trying to do it all. So I go for Rocks, and I'm like, fine, you're going to get Rocks, I'm going to get, or you're going to get all your Spikes, I'm going to get Rocks and all my Spikes. Para kind of throws a wrench in that, but it's fine. So now Leafeon comes in, and with the 3 layers of Spikes, I can't really switch into it. But I'm not worried because I have offensive. Worst case, I just chase it out with a Scarf Rotom, and I don't think it really wants to Swords Dance in my face, simply because even eating a Surf is going to inhibit its ability. I mean, if he wants to start Swords Dancing and synthesizing early on, because he's assuming Surf Earth Power, which I am, and waiting for me to full para so he can be at full health and with a Swords Dance, that's fine. But it's kind of it might just be a waste to try and do that early on before he knows the team. So it's likelier he's just going to Leaf Blade. So I'm just going to stay and get that 3rd layer. And now I have maximum hazards, and that's really useful. So his switches are going to be really, really limited. My offensive Pokemon are as threatening as possible. I'm just going to let it go. I don't love sacking Omastar. I mean, as we remember from a couple of games ago, I would love to have it for Death Fodder, but I can't really afford it, is the thing. So, at this point, it's a matter of not, again, the same principle, just applied differently. Don't let Omastar, don't switch in a more valuable Pokemon and make it worse for the purpose of, preserving Death Fodder. At this point, in this case, it's definitely not worth it. So it's a lefty's Leafeon, so it's going to have longevity, but no Life Orbs, that's fine. So I go to Eggy, because this is exactly what Eggy's supposed to do. So get the sleep off and make sure something is going to get shut down. So me being down 5-6 is fine. And I have a ton of hazards, so this is ideal condition. So Eggy comes in and sleep, and it eats Double Edge quite nicely. Look at that physical bulk. That often does 50 or more to offensive Venusaur. So that means even with the hazards, then I'm going to be able to come in and smack stuff later. And yeah, even if rocks go up, especially because I have leftovers. I mean, Colbur or Meadow Plate are also good. I mentioned those in the gigantic essay I wrote about Exeggutor as well. It's really awesome. Go read it. But yeah, so now we mentioned the thing about Pursuiters. So whereas the other Venusaur team, or the other Omastar team was more about facilitating the fighting types with the early sleep. Now we're using the early sleep to facilitate the late game Rotom. And the other, the back end has physical options as well, so you can actually threaten Registeel. But we also need, it's all about the Pursuiters here. And that's why Psychic is not the move. He's not just going to let Leafeon go necessarily. I mean, he could, but if he does let Leafeon go, then I've removed Leafeon, and that's great. Because I have an Azumarill, so that's especially really nice. So, and Azumarill is likely going to be his best check. That and the Suicide Quillfish lead, which is going to. I mean, T-Wave is definitely a smart move on Quillfish. Imagine trying to absorb a boom with a Rotom and getting T-Wave. That's infuriating. So, yeah, that would be fine. But I also want to Leaf Storm just because I don't want a Dark type switching in to Psychic freely, and Psychic would seem to be the move against Leafeon, right? So I go for a Leaf Storm just because even if Leafeon stays in, it's taking a ton. It doesn't have good special defense, and so I would just take it out that way. And if a Dark type, even if Houndoom switches in and it resists Grass, it's with max hazards, it can die. Actually, Yeah, uninvested Houndoom, I believe, always dies. It takes 50% minimum from Leaf Storm. It's crazy strong. So Absol, of course, just gets absolutely obliterated. So I appreciated seeing Absol, and I appreciated seeing, underrated Pokemon in, pretty much every game this tournament. So Absol is really cool. Maybe Quillfish was better there, maybe sacking Leafeon. If it was Pursuit, anyway, it might have been, I don't know, mixed or something. Just an all-out... Swords Dance Absol is also really cool. I'm assuming Pursuit, just because of the... I don't know. It just seems like the kind of... Because Band and Scarf Absol are both really good, and they fit Pursuit in really nicely. And I wish that the... Oh, you can't hear the old Chateau. I just can. Okay. So, I forget what the rest of his team is. It'll make more sense if it's Pursuit or not, depending on what else he might be packing. If he's trying to, weaken or remove Psychics and Ghosts for a fighter, for example. But yeah, Leaf Storm just blasts, and now I'm like, alright, that's all the full paras were worth it. Because now Leafeon's sleeping, Absol is dead, Quillfish has to explode to kill Exeggutor, so something else is coming in too. So Exeggutor just, whether you want to say this was handled optimally or not is another debate, but like just the sheer destructive potential Exeggutor possesses, especially because it's not as easy to make automatic assumptions about it as Venusaur. And, Venusaur is diverse as well, but most of the time you're going to be running that standard set. And it's less strong and less physically bulky, which is huge against that double edge. Look how much Eggy's healing off. So now another Pokemon gets revealed just to chase Eggy out. And since earlier we mentioned like lots of those slow, bulky Pokemon that are used even on more offensive teams, then Exeggutor can very likely come back in and blast another Leaf Storm later. So this is why I love Eggy. So I switch out because Houndoom, great switch into Most Missy. I have black glasses, so I'm really going to be stinging it. And there's more T-Wave, so he's really going all in on that T-Wave support. And Colbur was expected once the lefties didn't show up. Because, Life Orb Missy just... it makes more sense with the T-Wave Quillfish Life Orb that you're going to be doing some T-Wave Colbur stuff with Missy. It's not expected, but it makes more sense. And Life Orb Missy just feels... I haven't seen it in a really long time, just because it feels like it's so much more easy to play around Mismagius when it's losing health for attacking. And the power boost doesn't seem that substantial. It could definitely be irritating, potentially, but it doesn't seem as automatic. It would make more sense to me that it's some sort of utility stuff. So... I considered Colbur Missy myself on the first team before I realized that leftovers were just better. On that team, anyway. On this team, which plays at a pace that switches less, than Colbur definitely, because you want to stay in and force the issue more than trying to switch around as much as possible. So, don't mind Houndoom going down, especially once it's T-Wave. I want Missy going down too. So, that's the synergy here. Pursuit, and now my Toxicroak is a lot more threatening. So... there's Quillfish. I go to Rotom simply because I assume Quillfish comes in because fast and boom. And T-Bolt is very free because now the potential Pursuiter is down, and even if a ground type comes in, not a big deal. I have a Azumarill, a Focus Blast, Toxicroak for things like Donphan and Rhyperior and Exeggutor. So, and if Quillfish, switches out, then fine. It's not exactly the most threatening thing in the world. So I just T-Bolt. I guess he could have argued he could have gone to Rhyperior, but no big deal. I want to get an Exeggutor simply because it's a lot harder to set up on Exeggutor. I don't know the last yet, but something like, let's say, as opposed to Toxicroak, then let's say I sack Exeggutor and Leaf Storm and Rhyperior Stone Edges, right? And then I go to Toxicroak or Azumarill and I finish those things off, and I finish Rhyperior off, or the Sleeping Leafeon, let's say. And then the last Pokemon comes in. Azumarill and Toxicroak, as fierce as they are, that I have 2 priority moves and a Scarf Rotom, so it's unlikely that whatever it is could sweep me. But I wanted to be safe because it's a lot harder to set up on Eggy because it has Explosion, so which is such a perfect catch-all. So, plus there's also the fact that if he goes for an attacking move here as opposed to, like, I don't know, late Stealth Rock, then Toxicroak can switch into a Stone Edge, and I don't think he's going to try an EQ Eggy, because he wants to stay, what if Rotom, it's likelier he goes for Stone Edge because what if Rotom isn't Scarf? It's very likely to be Scarf, but what if it's, like, Subsplit or something with lefties, and you just want to attack the Rotom and bring it down? So it's not like you're going to be going for Earthquake here. So in addition to Eggy making it harder for the follow-up Pokemon to set up, then Toxicroak can actually switch into the move that Rhyperior is about to use here, most likely, the Stone Edge, and then dispatch it with Focus Blast. And then I have, then I'm not losing any Pokemon, and I can take on the last with 4 as opposed to 3. A lot less uncertainty. So I go to Toxicroak, and Rhyperior goes for late game Rocks, which is totally understandable. So I have Black Sludge on this, even though it's an offensive Croak, because I need some bulk on it to handle Venusaur. So I go for Focus, misses, but not really a problem because, I mean, definitely not great, but Exeggutor gets a Blast, another Leaf Storm, coming in even with all those hazards thanks to lefties, whereas without lefties, I think Rocks would have finished it off. Yeah, they definitely would have. So lefties are big. So look at all the destruction. So Leafeon comes in, another Leaf Storm, destroyed. And now nothing is really going to love switching in or setting up on Exeggutor again because of Boom. I mean, there's Toxicroak, who's not going to take even a -6 Psychic. But in principle, trying to be as safe as possible when you can afford it in situations like these is generally good practice. So he's also a Nasty Plot Croak, although he is the Life Orb variant. So I decide to go to Rotom. My last is a Azumarill. And, I will just bring down the... I mean, Rhyperior can't switch into 2 Shadow Balls at this point anyway, but I'm just going to finish off Toxicroak. Toxicroak might have Dark Pulse or Shadow Ball, but it'll die to Life Orb after, and then Azumarill will beat Rhyperior. So this one's all wrapped up. And, yeah, so his Rhyperior does have special defense, but Rock Blast and crit, but also could have just 3 hits, so it's fine. And Azumarill's going to finish it off. So yeah, that's everything, and we're wrapping up at under 2 hours, amazingly. So I think I've said more or less everything I wanted to. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I just love this tier so much, and I hope that feeling permeated throughout this video, and yeah. So Arceus Blessed, DPP UU. If you want, then you can join the Discord server, also linked in the description, and talk DPP UU whenever you would like. And next, I'll be looking to be playing DPP UU battles on Wi-Fi, just because the aesthetic cannot be beaten. So if you're into that, hit me up. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you next time.